Welcome back to Dialectic of Giants. Today, I'm your host, Jay. Today, we're doing something insane. I mean, literally impossible. I'm sitting across from a guest who needs no introduction, but also, totally needs a reintroduction because the narrative around him has been so co-opted by the hegemony of the religious right. He's a brown, Middle Eastern refugee, a radical redistributionist, and a victim of state violence. Please welcome Jesus.
Peace be with you, Jay.
Right, peace. Okay, so look, I've been prepping for this. I've been reading a lot of critical theory, and I want to start with the basics. We're living in late-stage capitalism. It's a nightmare, and the root of it is this obsession with private property. In my introduction to social stratification class, we read Proudhon, and he says, quote, "Property is theft." And Rousseau, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, in his Discourse on Inequality, basically proves that civil society only started when some guy fenced off a piece of land and said, "This is mine," and found people stupid enough to believe him. That's the original sin of society, not the apple, the fence. So, as a radical, how can you defend the concept of private property when it's inherently exclusionary?
You begin with a paradox, Jay. You quote Proudhon to say property is theft. But tell me, how does one steal that which belongs to no one? If I take a breath of air, do I steal it from you? No, because the air is superabundant. Theft is a concept that depends entirely on the pre-existence of property. The commandment given to Moses was not, "Thou shalt not use the commons inappropriately." It was, "Thou shalt not steal." This law presupposes that a man has things which are his, and his neighbor has things which are his own. To abolish property is to abolish the possibility of theft, and thus to render the commandment null.
But that's a circular argument. That's just justifying the status quo. I'm talking about how people got that property. It's usually violence, it's colonialism, it's what Marx called primitive accumulation. You can't just say God said don't steal when the person holding the property stole it in the first place. The land ultimately belongs to everyone, or as my theology professor says, the earth is the Lord's. That means God owns it, so we should share it communally, like an axe.
The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof. This is true. I am the ultimate owner. But you confuse the owner with the steward. In the beginning, God gave man dominion over the earth. Dominion is not a passive observation, it is active rulership. It is the application of human energy to matter. Consider the nature of man. He is finite. His time is scarce. When a man works the field, he mixes his life, his time, which is the only thing he truly possesses in a temporal sense, with the soil. If you take the crop he has grown, you are not merely taking wheat. You are taking the hours of his life he spent growing it. You are taking a piece of his past. This is why slavery is an abomination. It is the theft of a man's time and energy. If you abolish private property, as your professor suggests, you assert that no man owns his own labor. If the collective owns the fruit of my labor, then the collective owns me. That is not liberation, Jay. That is serfdom.
But wait, the early Christians, in the book of Acts, it says they held all things in common. They sold their possessions and gave to anyone who had need. That's communism. That's literally the definition of from each according to his ability to each according to his need.
Look closely at the text, Jay. They sold their possessions. They gave voluntarily. Peter did not set up a bureau of redistribution. He did not send centurions to confiscate the fields of Ananias and Sapphira. When Ananias lied, Peter said to him, "While it remained, was it not your own? And after it was sold, was it not in your own control?" The virtue of the early church was charity. Charity requires the right of property. I cannot be charitable with your money. I can only be charitable with mine. If the state takes your money to give to the poor, you have done no good work. You have merely been the victim of a robbery, and the poor have become the recipients of stolen goods. There is no love in a tax audit.
Okay, that's a very libertarian take. It sounds like you've been reading Robert Nozick or something. But let's talk about the consequences. When you have private property, you have inequality. You have rich people hoarding wealth while people starve. In my Sociology of Poverty seminar, we learned that inequality is the root of social unrest. It creates enemy. It alienates people.
You talked about the least of these. How can you support a system that allows Jeff Bezos to have a rocket ship while people don't have health care?
You speak of inequality as if it is an artificial imposition. But look at the creation. No two hills are the same height. No two trees bear the same amount of fruit. I told a parable about this, the parable of the talents. A master went away and entrusted his property to his servants. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to each according to his own ability. Notice I did not say he gave to them equally. He recognized their differing capacities. The one with 5 talents went out, traded, engaged in the market, and made 5 more. The one with 2 made 2 more. But the one with 1 talent, he was afraid. He was, if I may use your academic language, risk-averse. He buried the talent. He operated with a high time preference. He wanted to preserve what he had rather than produce for the future. When the master returned, he did not say, "Oh, how unfair that the first servant has 10 talents and the third has only 1. Let us redistribute." No, he took the 1 talent from the slothful servant and gave it to the one who had 10.
Whoa, wait, you're saying the rich get richer? That's your message? That is literally the most capitalist, oppressive thing I've ever heard. That's justifying the accumulation of capital at the expense of the poor. My professor, Dr. Klein, says that parable is actually a critique of the master. The master represents the oppressive Roman system, and the servant who buried the talent is a whistleblower refusing to participate in an extractive economy.
Your Professor Klein reads the text through the lens of his own envy. The master represents God. The resources are the gifts given to you. Your intelligence, your energy, your time. The servant who buried the talent was called wicked and lazy. Why? Because he wasted the opportunity to create value. You see, Jay, in a free market, which is simply a system of voluntary exchange, the only way the man with 5 talents can make 5 more is by serving others. He cannot force them to give him money. He must offer them something they value more than their gold. Wealth in a righteous system is a certificate of performance. It is evidence that you have served your neighbor. The inequality you despise is often the result of different choices, different abilities, and different degrees of patience.
Patience? What does patience have to do with economics?
Everything. We must speak of time preference.
Time preference. Okay, I've heard of this. It's an Austrian economics term. Hans Hermann Hoppe talks about it, but it seems like a way to blame poor people for being poor. Like, oh, if you just stopped buying avocado toast and saved your money, you'd be rich. It ignores systemic barriers. It ignores structural racism. It ignores the fact that the system is rigged.
The system of the world is indeed rigged, often by the very governments you look to for salvation. But let us look deeper. Time preference is the degree to which a person prefers a good now versus a good later. A child has a very high time preference. He wants the candy now. He cannot wait. A mature man has a lower time preference. He plants a seed today knowing he will not eat the fruit for a season. He sacrifices the present consumption for a greater future. Civilization is the process of lowering time preference. It is the process of learning to wait. The sluggard does not plow in the autumn. He will seek at harvest and have nothing. When I told my disciples to store up treasures in heaven, I was teaching them the ultimate low time preference. I asked them to forego the immediate pleasures of sin, which are fleeting, for an eternal reward. The kingdom of God is a long-term investment.
Okay, but that's spiritual. We're talking about material conditions. Keynes, John Maynard Keynes, said in the long run we are all dead, so we should spend now. The government should stimulate the economy. If people save too much, we get the paradox of thrift and the economy crashes. We need consumption.
In the long run, we are all dead. That is the philosophy of the atheist and the hedonist. It is the philosophy of the high time preference man. Let us eat and drink, for tomorrow we die. But if you believe in the future, if you believe in your children or in God, you do not eat the seed corn. You save it. You mentioned the government stimulating the economy. What does the government do? It prints money. It creates inflation. Do you know what inflation is, Jay?
It's a raise in the price level. It's necessary for a growing economy. The Fed targets 2% inflation to prevent deflationary spirals.
Inflation is a lie. It is a false weight and a false balance, which the Lord abhors. Proverbs 11:1. When the Caesar prints new coins or adds zeros to the ledger, he dilutes the value of every coin held by the widow and the worker. He steals from the saver to give to the debtor. This encourages high time preference. If you know your money will be worth less next year, you will spend it today. You will not build for the future. You will consume. A society that consumes everything and saves nothing is a society returning to barbarism. It is a society that acts like the prodigal son who demanded his inheritance now and squandered it on loose living.
But the prodigal son was forgiven.
He was forgiven when he repented, when he returned to his father's house and accepted his humble state. He did not demand a bailout from the pig farmer. He did not form a union of exploited swine. Jay, our time here draws to a close, but the path before you is only beginning. We have spoken of the vineyard and the coins, of the difference between the forced hand of Caesar and the open hand of charity. Remember what we have unmasked today. Your life is your own, a gift from the Father, and no collective, no mob, and no state has a claim upon the time and energy you mix with the earth. True freedom is not the license to take from others, but the responsibility to govern oneself under the law of God. To those watching, I leave you with this. The world will tell you that the majority defines what is good. They will tell you that envy is justice and that theft is compassion. Do not be deceived. Defend the truth with every breath you have. Truth is not a consensus, it is a person, and it is an objective reality that does not bend to the whims of a ballot box. When your professors or your peers demand that you bow to the idols of the age, stand firm. To be silent in the face of a lie is to give that lie power. However, as you stand for the truth, do not let your hearts be hardened. Love your enemies. Pray for those who wish to use the power of the state to coerce you. Love the student who mocks your faith. Love the politician who devalues your labor. Love the neighbor who does not yet understand the gift of liberty. For if you only love those who agree with you, what reward have you? Show them a better way, the way of the kingdom, which is built on peace, voluntary service, and the sanctity of the soul. Go now and be stewards of the light. If this message has stirred your spirit and opened your eyes to the illusions of the world, then I ask you to spread this message to your friends. Do not hide this light under a bushel. Like this video and share it with those who are still wandering in the darkness of the social contract. Let the truth echo until the captives are set free. May the peace of the Father, which surpasses all academic understanding, guard your hearts and your minds. You are free indeed. Peace be with you all.